Let me ask one thing before we begin. During the year when you first appeared for interview, how many of you chose the C++ programming language? While I was preparing for the interviews, I myself started with C++. Though it's true that C++ is kind of an old language in 2025, but you can't ignore it. Neither companies do, considering how close it is to machine-level code and how fast it is. Feel like this might be wrong? Well, don't take my words. Go ahead and Google C++ developers jobs available in India. You will see that just on the LinkedIn job board, there are over 115,000 plus C++ developers jobs available in India alone. Big names like Adobe, Apple, Google and LinkedIn rely on C++ for building crucial tasks like building their databases and powering machine learning algorithms. Plus, companies like Bosch, Capgemini, Amazon, Microsoft, Accenture, IBM, Meta, and Adobe are always on hunt for skilled C++ developers. So if you're a recent college graduate eager to land a job in these tech companies and are well versed in C++, you have landed at the right resource for your interview preparation. We have taken the time to analyze the interview process of these top companies and put together the 20 most important C++ interview questions. These cover all the key concepts you will need, giving you a solid foundation to tackle your interview to land that dream job in C++ development. Before we jump into the interview question, don't forget to subscribe to Intellipaat's YouTube channel for more tech contents like this. So starting up with the very first question, which is why C++ is preferred over C programming language. So this looks one of the most basic questions, but many of the candidates fail to give answer in a right manner. So C was developed first and it serves as the foundation for many programming languages, especially for low-level tasks, for example, memory management. So it's a procedural language. What I mean by procedure is that everything is being written in function. For example, you define a function and every task you perform inside the function. And it follows a top-down approach, meaning firstly, there comes the int main. And then inside the int main, all the functions are defined. So the program starts initially from the int main, ultimately breaking the main function into smaller tasks for execution. On the other hand, C++ is considered a superset of C. So you can see, firstly there comes C and then comes C++. It introduces the concept of abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism, and encapsulation, making it more powerful for handling complex systems. And unlike C, which follows a top-down approach, C++ uses a bottom-up approach, meaning if there is a main function, you can also define the function outside the main function and into smaller chunks. So you just can call this function by defining its functionality outside the main function, leading to development of smaller component first, then combine to form the complete system. And when it comes to security, C++ has an edge due to its supports for encapsulation and data hiding, which protects data from unauthorized access. In contrast, C relies only on function for data handling, making manipulation easier and less secure. So for error handling, C++ offers built-in support for exception. For example, try, catch, throw, whereas C just relies on functions. So in summary, we can say that C++ builds upon the strength of C, enhancing it with the modern programming feature and focus on object-oriented design. This makes C++ not only a more secure and flexible language, but also well suited for a wide range of applications. So moving on with our next question, which is what is a static data member? So a static data member share one copy across all the class instance rather than belonging to a single object. In that case, what happens is that we create only one copy of that member and is shared by all the objects of that class, no matter how many objects are created, and memory is also allocated at once. So here you can see in this diagram, we have this count variable and this object 1, object 2 and object 3. It all will share this count and the memory for this count will be allocated only at once, which means when the class is first used or loaded and this memory is shared by all the objects of that class, resulting to the creation of only one copy of the variable regardless of how many objects of the class exist. and all objects of the class share the same variable. And if this object 1, it modifies this count, then the changes will be reflected in object 2 and object 3 also. So let's see with the help of a simple code. So consider this example where you have to keep track of how many students are enrolled. So we only want a common variable for all the objects, and the updation should happen in all of them. So here is our main function. We have defined P1 and P2 objects and a return statement which is printing the total number of objects created. And we are calling this getCount. So we defined a static member outside the class with the class name and the static member variable. So here we have defined the static member to keep the count of total objects. What we are doing, we are incrementing the count variable every time a new student is enrolled, and we are just returning the count. So let's run it. So you can see that total number of objects created are 2, means total students enrolled are 2. And if we wouldn't have used static, then it would have shown that the total number of objects created are only 1. So we can say that static data members are useful when you need to keep track of information that should be shared across all the instances of a class, such as counting how many objects have been created or maintaining configuration setting that applies to all the instances. Moving on to question number 3, which is what is this pointer in C++? So this pointer in C++ is a built-in pointer available inside all non-static member functions of a class, and it points to the object that is calling the function, allowing the function to access or modify the members of that specific object. So this points to the object invoking the function, enabling unique behavior for each object. So to simplify, imagine each object of a class as a separate individual. And when one object calls a function, that this pointer acts like the object saying, I am referring to myself. So when you want to access or change the attributes inside the function, this ensures that the changes happens to the object that called the function. For example, you can see the simple block of code here. We have a void demo and int x equals to 20. And in the class test, we have int x equals to 10. So this .x will say that the value of current x is 10 and not 20. So we'll see it with the simple code. So you can see there is a simple code written here. We have a class person and 2 objects P1 and P2. So when we are calling display for P1, then this says that this age equals to age, which means this is saying, please put my age equals to 25. And when the person P2 is calling by giving a parameter 30, then the call for this will say to this pointer that please put my age to 30. So in that case, it will refer to the current object. For example, let's run this code. So you see for the first time, it is printing age is 25, and for the second time, it's printing age is 30. So when P1 called the display, the value corresponding to P1's object was being pointed, and when P2 calls, the value for the corresponding P2 was pointed. So moving on with our question number 4, which is what is an inline function? So an inline function in C++ is a way to make your code a little faster by avoiding the overhead of calling a function. So as the name suggests, that inline is expanded in line when it is called. So you can see the normal function here is when there is a main function and a function written inside the main function, the flow of control directly goes to that main function. Whereas in inline function, the flow of code doesn't go separately to any function. Rather, the whole code of inline function get inserted or substituted at the point of inline function. So we use the keyword inline before any function to make that function inline. So we'll be looking at a simple example to understand it more better. So as you can see on the screen, we have this number with value 5 and we are just returning a statement. Cube of the number is cube and we are calling this cube by passing this number. So what is happening? We have made this cube function inline by putting this inline keyword and we are just returning x into x into x. So whenever you call this cube function, say you replaced cube with cube 5, the compiler replaces it directly with 5 into 5 into 5. So rather than calling this whole function, the compiler will directly replace it with this. So there is no function call, just direct the insertion of code, overall optimizing the code better by adjusting the function to specific context. So you can say this number is being replaced by 5 cross 5 cross 5. Moving on with our question number 5, which is what is an exceptional handling in C++? So to understand this question, firstly we need to understand what are these exceptions. So exceptions are runtime anomalies or abnormal condition that your program may encounter during its execution. For example, when you are dividing any number by 0, this is exception. Or out of memory, for example, you are defining an array with a memory size 5, but you're trying to insert values greater than the size of this array. So out of array bound or invalid input or overflow, underflow are all the types of exception you may face, and handling these types of exception is called exception handling. So instead of getting no output whenever any error comes in the program, using exception handling mechanism, the control from one part of the program where the exception occurred can be transferred to another part of the code. And C++ offers an inbuilt feature for exception handling using try, catch, and throw block. So what is this try block? So try block is where you place the code that might throw an error. Imagine this is a safety net, and if something goes wrong, the exception is thrown from here. Catch block, this is where the thrown exception is caught and handled. If the program finds an error in the try block, it jumps to the catch block where you can define what to do with the error, like showing an error message, cleaning up the resource, etc. And throw keyword. This is used to throw an exception when something goes wrong. So when a throw statement is encountered, the program stops whatever it is doing and jumps to the nearest catch block that can handle the error. So you see, this is a pseudo code for a very simple example of error handling. So what we are doing, we are setting the value of A as 10 and we are setting the value of B as 0. So let's come to this try block. This is a block which holds the code that might cause an exception. So if B is 0, then throw the exception as division by a 0 error. And if it is not, then you can just put the result. And what is this catch statement? This will catch the statement and print exception caught and plus the error message which you are showing here. End try, return 0, end. So let's look at this implementation. So you see this block of code. We have A as 10, B as 0, and if B is equals to 0, then please throw an error that division by 0 error has occurred. If not, print the result, and what it will show, this catch block will show that yes, error is caught, and it will show the output statement. So let's run to see. So you see, this is giving the statement that exception is caught, and what is that exception? It is division by 0 error. So this was all about the exception handling. Let's move on to our next question, which is a scenario-based question. So design a class hierarchy where car and truck both inherit from a base class vehicle, and then create a class pickup truck that inherits from both car and truck. Demonstrate the ambiguity that arises when trying to access property or function from vehicle through pickup truck, and then resolve the issue using an appropriate inheritance method. So what this question is saying, that we have a vehicle class and this car and truck are both inheriting the properties of this vehicle class, and then there is another pickup truck which is inheriting again from car and truck. So in C++, when you are working with multiple inheritance, a well-known issue called the diamond problem can arise. Let us break down with a simple story to make it more relatable. So imagine a vehicle as a parent class representing the basic traits of all the vehicles, like ability to move. Now you have two children, car and truck. Both inherit the characteristic of the vehicle like wheels, engine, etc. And things here are fine. But here's the twist. when you create a new class pickup truck, which is a combination of both a car and a truck, and now this pickup truck will inherit vehicle twice, once through this car and once through this truck. There is where the diamond shape of inheritance, so you see this shape, it's looking like a diamond only, comes in. The top point is vehicle and it splits into two through car and truck, merging back to a pickup at bottom. So what can be the solution? The solution of this problem is virtual inheritance. So to resolve this confusion, C++ gives a handy tool which is called virtual inheritance, by making both car and truck inherit from vehicle using the keyword virtual. So you are essentially telling C++ that both this car and this truck should share the same single instance of a vehicle. So instead of having two separate copy of vehicle, pickup truck will inherit only once. So let's understand it better by looking the code. So you see we have this simple code where this is class vehicle, this is class car, this is class truck, and this is class pickup truck, which is inheriting from both car and truck. So now this is the function display. Now this pickup truck's object PT wants to access this display function. So let's see what will be the output. So you see this is giving the error that request for member display is ambiguous, because this object doesn't know where to share the display function from this car or from the truck. And to avoid the same, we use the concept of virtual keyword. So this says that now you can just access only one single resource from the base class. So you see this is printing the message, this is a base vehicle. So we can say that when you call the display function from pickup truck, there is no confusion. There's only one vehicle and C++ knows exactly which one to use. So moving on with our next question, which is again a scenario based question. You're creating a banking application with two classes, account and transaction. The transaction class needs to check the private balance of an account to see if there are enough funds for a withdrawal. How would you allow the transaction class to access the balance while keeping the account details secure? So, okay, this is a bit tricky question and some of you might think that this is not possible to access private member of any class. But it is actually possible with something called as friend class, which can access a private and protected member of other class in which it is declared as friend. So if you have a class private A with some data members and you have a friend class B, so this B class can access the data members of this private A. And for example, a linked list class may be allowed to access private members of node. So a class is made friend using the keyword friend. So to explain it better, imagine you are working in a bank and there is a vault which is representing some private data. Okay. So only certain members like manager of the bank has the access to that data and nobody else, or like a regular employee, they can't really go and access that data. This is like how private members in a class such as balance in the account class are hidden and protected. But there can be one case that sometimes accountant needs to access the vault to manage transaction. But then the manager doesn't want, other than this accountant, anyone to access that. So in that case, the manager gives the accountant special permission. Similarly is the case in C++. So by using the friend keyword, you are saying this specific class, the accountant or transaction class, can access the vault or the private balance and the account class. Let's see the code to understand it in a better manner. So you see this is the class transaction which wants to access the private data member balance of this account class. So we are putting this friend class transaction which allows transaction class to access the balance, and we are just displaying the balance, and here we are displaying the balance. So let's run this code, and these all are the functionalities of withdraw function to reduce balance if enough funds are available. So let's run this program So you see it's giving all the correct results because of we have put this transaction class as a friend class of this account class. So what will happen if we'll remove this friend? So it will throw error. What error? So you see it's giving the error double account balance is a private within this context and you can't access it. So this is where the friend classes comes into the picture. So moving on with our question number 8, which is what is a call by value and call by reference in C++. So C++ provide ways to pass the argument in a function mainly by call by value or call by reference. So call by value is just like giving someone a copy of notes. So suppose you have a copy of your note. So suppose you have this original note and your friend is asking for the original note, but you give the photocopy of this original note, copy of this note. So any changes made in this copy of note will not be affected in this original note. Whereas in call by reference, you give this same original copy to your friend. So any changes made here will reflect here also. So call by value copies the actual parameter to the function, changes inside the function don't affect the original value, and call by reference passes the memory address allowing direct modification of the original value. So original value modified, in call by reference yes, in call by value no. So let's see a very simple example to understand it in a more better way. So this is a main function, number as 5, calling this function increment and just a print statement. So let's see. So you see that inside the function, the value of num is incremented, but the modified value is not reflected in this main function and the original values remain unchanged, which is 5. So this is a call by value. Let's see call by reference. So you see we are passing the reference of this original value. So let's run this program. You see that the value inside the function is 6 and the value after the function calls is also 6 and the original value is modified. So moving on with our next question, which is what are access modifiers in C++? So what are access modifiers or access specifiers in a class? It is used to assign the accessibility to class members. Let's consider a real world example. The same example which we took of the bank. We have a safe place where the cash and stuffs are stored, and this safe space can only be accessed by managers and not all the employees. However, if regular employee like an accountant needs money for transaction, they can't directly access the safe. So instead, what we'll do, they will request this manager who then retrieves the money and gives them back. Similar to how private members can only be accessed through the public function of a class. And what this ensures the safety. So there are 3 types of access modifiers available: public, private and protected. So public members are simply which can be accessed by both derived and base class. And in public, all the class members are declared public using public keyword. And the data members and public members declared as public can be accessed by other classes and functions too. So let's see a code. So you see, this is a class circle with public data member as radius and a get area. So when we are trying to access this value of this radius through object obj.radius, it will print the value of radius as 5.5 because the radius is declared as public. So you see it's giving the value as 5.5. But instead of public, if we try to define it private and we run this, we'll see that double class radius is private within this context and we can't really access it. So the class member declared as private can only be accessed by the member function inside that class and cannot be directly used by other function outside the class. So last comes this protected. So the protected access modifier is similar to the private access modifier in sense that it can't be accessed outside of this class unless with the help of a friend class. Remember, we discussed the friend class when we were making a class friend by putting a keyword friend. So the difference is that class member declared as protected can be accessed by any subclass, derived class also, but that's not the case with private access modifier. So this base class can access this protected member and derived class also, but this base class can access the private member, but derived class can't access the private members. So moving on with our next question, which is write a program to check if two strings are anagram or not. To solve this question, we should have a clear understanding that what is the meaning of an anagram. So suppose you have a string A which consists the value of act and B which has TCA. So these two strings are said to be anagram of each other if the frequency of all the characters present in string A matches with the frequency of all the characters present in this string B. So A comes 1, C comes 1 and T comes 1, provided that both the string should be in lowercase. Okay, so let's quickly see how we'll solve this question. तो what we are doing here is, सबसे पहले हमने एक मेन फंक्शन बना लिया जिसके अंदर एक स्ट्रिंग A है और एक स्ट्रिंग B है. स्ट्रिंग A की वैल्यू है प्रोग्राम और स्ट्रिंग B की वैल्यू है प्रोग्राम का रिवर्सल, विच इज द रिवर्स कैरेक्टर ऑफ दिस प्रोग्राम. फिर हमने एक R एनाग्राम नाम का एक फंक्शन बना लिया टू चेक कि इफ द स्ट्रिंग्स आर एनाग्राम तो हम प्रिंट करा देंगे द स्ट्रिंग्स आर एनाग्राम, अदरवाइज विल सिंपली प्रिंट दिस दैट द स्ट्रिंग्स आर नॉट एनाग्राम. तो पहले क्या हो रहा है कि पहले हम चेक कर रहे हैं कि जो हमारा स्ट्रिंग A का लेंथ है अगर वो पहले ही B के लेंथ के इक्वल नहीं है तो पॉसिबिलिटी नहीं है कि आगे जाने की और चेक करने की, तो हम यहीं पे रिटर्न फॉल्स करा देंगे. उसके बाद इफ देयर इज अ पॉसिबिलिटी अगर उनके लेंथ सेम है तो हम क्या करेंगे, हम एक फ्रीक्वेंसी टेबल नाम का एरे बना देंगे जिसका साइज होगा 256 टू कवर ऑल द एस्काई वैल्यूज. फिर और जो हमारा A स्ट्रिंग है हम उस पर एक लूप लगाएंगे और स्टोर करेंगे फ्रीक्वेंसी ऑफ ऑल इट्स कैरेक्टर. फॉर एग्जाम्पल जो हमारा A स्ट्रिंग है प्रोग्राम है तो इसकी फ्रीक्वेंसी टेबल ऐसे बनेगी PROGRAM. हम चेक करेंगे P की फ्रीक्वेंसी एक बार है, R की फ्रीक्वेंसी 2 बार है, O की अगेन एक बार है, G की एक बार है, ये हो चुकी है ऑलरेडी, ये नहीं रहेगा, A की एक बार है और M की एक बार है. तो हमारा फ्रीक्वेंसी टेबल ऐसा दिखेगा. उसके बाद हम एक लूप लगाएंगे अपने B स्ट्रिंग के लिए, तो I0 से B की लेंथ तक वो लूप चलेगा. और हम फिर क्या करेंगे, हम B स्ट्रिंग को ट्रैवर्स करेंगे, जो इसका रिवर्स था हम इसको ट्रैवर्स करेंगे और हम इस अपने फ्रीक्वेंसी टेबल में जाएंगे और उस कैरेक्टर की फ्रीक्वेंसी 0 करते रहेंगे, लाइक डिक्रीमेंट करते रहेंगे 1 से. जो कैरेक्टर हमें B स्ट्रिंग में मिलता जाएगा. तो सपोज अगर हमें M मिल गया अपने B स्ट्रिंग में तो हम इस फ्रीक्वेंसी टेबल में जाएंगे और इसमें से 1 माइनस कर देंगे तो फ्रीक्वेंसी 0 हो जाएगी. ऐसे सब में से 1 माइनस करेंगे चेक करके. और अगर स्ट्रिंग एनाग्राम होंगे तो हमें एंड आउटपुट जो है वो 0 ही मिलेगा. और लास्ट में हम क्या करेंगे, हम चेक करेंगे अगर सारी वैल्यूज फ्रीक्वेंसी टेबल की 0 है तो विल अगेन रन अ लूप फ्रॉम I इक्वल्स टू 0 एंड I इज लेस देन 256. तो और फ्रीक्वेंसी एट I इज नॉट इक्वल्स टू 0 है. और अगर कोई वैल्यू ऐसी रहेगी जो 0 नहीं है, मीनिंग कोई तो ऐसा कैरेक्टर है जो कि अलग है, उस केस में हम कर देंगे रिटर्न फॉल्स दैट दे आर नॉट एनाग्राम, और ट्रू कर देंगे अगर दे आर एनाग्राम. लेट्स रन दिस कोड टू सी द आउटपुट. So the strings are anagram. You see, we have passed this program and the reverse of this program, which is giving that the strings are anagram. So conclusion क्या निकलता है कि if both the string contain the same character in the same amount, the function returns true, otherwise it returns false. ठीक है. Moving on with our next question, which is write a program to find first non-repeating character in a string. So इसके लिए हम map use करेंगे. So map is a data structure which stores value and frequency. तो let's quickly see its implementation. तो हमने एक string ले लिया Swiss और एक रिजल्ट कैरेक्टर टाइप का बना दिया विच विल बी स्टोरिंग द रिजल्ट प्रोवाइडेड बाय दिस फंक्शन कॉल फर्स्ट नॉन रिपीटिंग कैर. सो इफ रिजल्ट इज नॉट इक्वल्स टू नल, दैट मीन्स द फर्स्ट नॉन कैरेक्टर इज द रिजल्ट, अदरवाइज नो नॉन रिपीटिंग कैरेक्टर फाउंड. ओके, तो हमने एक मैप बना दिया कैरेक्टर और इन टाइप का. तो व्हाट इट इज डूइंग बेसिकली, जो हमारा स्विस वेरिएबल है उसमें हम एस डब्ल्यू आई हम फ्रीक्वेंसी स्टोर कर रहे हैं. एस की 3 बार है, डब्ल्यू की 1 बार है और आई की भी 1 बार है. पर हमें चाहिए फर्स्ट नॉन रिपीटिंग विच मीन्स डब्ल्यू. उसके बाद दिस प्रोग्राम शुड एंड. तो हमने ट्रैवर्स करा पूरे उस स्ट्रिंग को और फ्रीक्वेंसी विच इज दिस अनऑर्डर्ड मैप, हमने उस फ्रीक्वेंसी बढ़ा दी. वी आर इंक्रीमेंटिंग द काउंट ऑफ ईच कैरेक्टर. Then we are again traversing this string to find the first character with a frequency 1. तो जैसे ही हमें frequency of stri 1 मिला, हमने रिटर्न करा दिया कि भाई अब हमें आगे ये कोड नहीं चाहिए, हमें पहला ही नॉन रिपीटिंग कैरेक्टर चाहिए, तो तुम वो रिटर्न कर दो. So let's run this code to see. So you can see that the first non-repeating character is W. Fine. So moving on, explain the concept of polymorphism. So what is a polymorphism? So polymorphism is derived from 2 words, which is poly and morphism. Poly means many and morphism means form. Okay, so imagine a real-time example of polymorphism can be of a man. So a man is sometimes a father, sometimes a brother, he can be an employee, etc. So the same person exhibit different behaviors in different situations, which is called polymorphism. So there are 2 types of polymorphism, compile time and runtime. Compile time polymorphism is achieved by function overloading and operator overloading, whereas runtime polymorphism is achieved using virtual functions. So talking about compile time polymorphism, so when there are multiple functions with the same name but different parameters, then that function are said to be overloaded. Hence this is called function overloading. Function can be overloaded by changing the number of arguments. So suppose you have this function 1 and this function 1 again, but if you have different numbers of parameters, then this is said to be function overloading. Or maybe the return type. For example, here you have int, whereas here you have float. So it can be overloaded by changing the number of argument or changing the type of argument. So let's see with a very simple example. We have this class polymorphism example. यहाँ पे एक void type का fun है जिसके अंदर एक int type का parameter x है और एक float type का parameter y है. तो जब हम ये obj.fun कॉल करते हैं और 55 पास करते हैं तो कंपाइलर को पता लग जाता है कि हमें इस फंक्शन को कॉल करना है क्योंकि इसका रिटर्न टाइप int है. और जब हम obj.fun कॉल करते हैं 55.55 डाल के तो फिर कंपाइलर को पता लग जाता है कि वी आर कॉलिंग दिस फंक्शन विथ फ्लोट पैरामीटर. सो लेट्स रन दिस कोड. सो हियर वी आर कॉलिंग fun with int which is 55 and we are calling fun with float 55.55. तो same name but different parameters. So now coming on to operator overloading. So C++ allows you to give operator a special meaning for different data types, a feature called operator overloading. So for example, we use plus to add this thing. What will be this value? 5. But if we are using this plus in 2 strings, suppose A, B, C and E, F, G. So in this case, this concatenates these 2 strings and the final result is A, B, C, E, F, G. So normally plus operator adds to number, but through operator overloading you can make it perform different tasks based on the data type. So when you use plus between 2 integers, it adds them, but when you use it between 2 strings, it concatenates them or joins them. So let's see its implementation. So you see here the operator is being overloaded, and when we are passing hello and world, into two objects, it concatenates them, giving the result as hello world. So this was all about the compile time polymorphism. Now let's talk about runtime polymorphism. So this type of polymorphism is achieved by function overriding. The function call is resolved at the runtime. In runtime polymorphism, in contrast with compile time polymorphism, the compiler determines which function call to bind to the object after deducing it to the runtime. How this function overriding occurs: when there is a base class and this is a derived class, and when this derived class has a definition for one of the member function of the base class, that the same name of the function is present here also and the same name of the function is present here also, then in that case the base function is said to be overridden. So let's see with the help of a code. So you see, we have this class animal and this dog is inheriting from this animal class. We have this sound both in animal class and dog class. So what is happening when we are creating a pointer of a base class as A, and when we are creating object of dog class and we are pointing this pointer to the dog's object, and when we are calling that function A sound, then what will be the output? So you can see this function has literally overridden this sound class and the output is dog barks. So this is all about runtime polymorphism. So moving ahead with our next question, which is what are constructors and their type in C++? A constructor in C++ is a special function that initializes an object when it is created. Okay, so suppose we have a class car, okay, public members as say string brand, okay, and this is a constructor. So what we are doing, we are giving the brand as Toyota. Suppose we have given, okay. So in main function, when we'll create the object of car, which is car1, and suppose here after this constructor we have a function display which is displaying the brand. What is the brand name? This contains only a cout statement. So when we will call this car1.display, so when this car1 object is created, the default constructor is called here, meaning this is telling that set the brand to Toyota. As soon as this car1 is created, this is calling the default constructor and is saying that please give this brand as Toyota. So you can think of it as a setup function that gets automatically called to give the object a valid initial state. It ensures that an object is ready to be used right after its creation by assigning values to attributes. See, here it's assigning the value only, brand Toyota. So imagine a constructor as the setup process when you buy a new phone. So when you're buying a new phone, you set up it, you assign the phone numbers, you assign the how the display should look like. So this is what a constructor does for an object-oriented programming. Okay. So there are three types of constructor in C++, which is default, parameterized, and copy. In default, we have just the class name. For example, here we had a default constructor. In parameterized, we have class name and parameter, and in copy constructor, we have class name, and old class names object. So in copy, it creates a new object as a copy of an existing one. So let's go and look at the code. So you see, we have this class phone with public data members as string, brand, and model. And when we are creating this phone, an object phone, by passing values as Apple and iPhone. So this object is saying my values are Apple and iPhone. So whenever this object is being created by these values, this constructor has a parameter string B and string M, and it assigns the value. Okay, brand B equals to B and model equals to M. And In this void display, we have brand here and model. When we will give value as Apple, this B will be initialized with Apple, and when we are giving iPhone 14, this M is being initialized by iPhone 14. So let's run this code. You see, this is Apple iPhone 14, right? So this was all about the constructor in C++. So moving on with our next question, which is what is STL? So STL, which is standard template library, is a built-in data structure like vectors, sets, and map. It's like having a collection of ready-to-use tools that will help you work with data more easily and efficiently. So you don't have to build everything from scratch. For example, containers. So you see, we have containers of set, map, multiset, unordered multimap. We have sequence container, stack, queues, priority queues. So we'll just import this STL and we don't have to write the codes for all these functions one by one. So when we are just including vectors, then we really don't need to write all the function which this vector provide. For example, vector.push, and we can easily push the element rather than writing this whole push function. So these containers are like different type of boxes which you can store your data. For example, if you have a list of name, you might use a vector which is like a dynamic array that can grow as more and more name comes, or a map which stores key value pairs. So apart from these containers, we have iterators, we have algorithms. So algorithm is part where pre-written codes are there for common tasks. For instance, if you need to sort your name, you can use any sorting algorithm like sort and a.begin. So if you want to sort your name which is in the form of array, you can directly use the sort function a.begin, a.end. So you can think of the iterator as a pointer that will let you to traverse the container, and they will help you to access each element in container one by one without need to worry about the internal details. So a question must be coming to your mind that why to use STL? So using STL saves your time and effort. So it really saves your time and effort. So instead of reinventing the wheel, you can leverage these pre-built components. Okay, moving on to our next question, which is write a program to remove duplicates from a sorted array. So suppose we have something called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this 2 is coming twice. So we have to just remove this 2 and we have to turn this new array. So one way is to use the index to track the unique element position, and then you can compare each element with the previous one and update the index for O of n complexity. But there is something called as set if your elements are sorted, which is sorted. So we are going to use set for this. So let's see its implementation. तो यहाँ पे as we can see कि हमारे पास एक वेक्टर है sorted array नाम का जिसमें values हैं, और एक remove duplicates नाम का function है which is taking this sorted array as parameter. तो हम एक remove duplicates नाम का function बनाएंगे जहाँ पे we are giving this parameter, और एक set है which will store the unique elements, and this vector to store the unique element after removing the duplicates. So we'll insert the elements of the array into set. For this we will be using a loop which will run from 0 to array.size, and it will increment, and we'll insert each values in the set. And then what we will do, we will just transfer each and every values from the set to this unique array and we'll return unique array, and after traversing the array we'll get our result. So let's see. So array after removing duplicates is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. तो बेसिकली हम इसमें कर क्या रहे हैं कि हम एक वेक्टर बना रहे हैं जो स्टोर करेगा हमारा नया वैल्यू, और एक सेट बना रहे हैं। तो पहले हम क्या कर रहे हैं कि जो हमारा ओरिजिनल एरे है दिस वन, इसको हम एक सेट में डाल रहे हैं एक एक करके। तो जब हम सेट में डाल रहे हैं तो ये कुछ ऐसे जा रहा है 1 2 3 4 5, क्योंकि 2 इज ट्वाइस, इट विल रिमूव द डुप्लीकेट वैल्यू। और फिर हम इस सेट को वी आर अगेन ट्रैवर्सिंग। इस सेट को ट्रैवर्स करने के बाद एक ये वैल्यू हम इस नए वाले वेक्टर में अपने डाल रहे हैं, और उसके बाद योर वेक्टर कंसिस्ट लाइक दिस, और फिर आपका वेक्टर इट विल बी 1 2 3 4 5। ओके, तो फिर एक आप लूप लगा देंगे, फॉर लूप, टू प्रिंट वैल्यूज 1 by 1. So this was that. So moving on to our next question, which is given an integer array nums, return all the triplets nums at I, nums at j and nums at k such that I is not equals to j, I is not equals to k and j is not equals to k, and nums at I plus nums at j plus nums at k should be equals to 0. Notice that the solution set must not contain duplicate triplets. So guys, this is a very famous example which is also known as triplet sum or three sum problem. You can easily find this on both LeetCode and GFG. So what should be our approach? The very first approach which should be coming to your mind is running 3 for loops and compute the sum. But then again it would take the time complexity of O of n cube. So what is our next approach? Our next approach is we can sort the array and we can use two-pointer technique to find the triplet that the sum to 0 for each element, and we can use a set to store only unique triplet, ensuring no duplicates. The overall time complexity would be O of n square, making the solution more efficient for finding combination. So without wasting any time, let's jump to the coding section. So the code which you can see here, we are just completing a function which is 3 sum. It's taking input in the form of vector nums. So what we are doing, we are just creating a variable target, and हमारा target इस case में 0 है. फिर we are sorting the nums by nums.begin and nums.end. एक set है जो कि एक vector type का है जिसमें integers value है, और एक हमारा output vector है. So what we are doing, हम पहले traverse कर रहे हैं nums.size तक, I जो हमारा initially 0 पे है और हमारा j जो है वो I plus 1 पे है. So what I mean by this is, suppose हमारे पास ये elements हैं, तो हमारा I यहाँ पे है, j यहाँ पे है और k यहाँ पे है, and this k is at nums.size minus 1. So what is happening? Under this loop, we are again putting one loop which will run for this statement j is less than k, and every time we are trying to take this unique sum which is nums at I, nums at j and nums at k. So every time what we are doing, we are adding this 1 plus 2 plus 5, nums at I, nums at j and nums at k, and we are seeing that if sum equals to target, मतलब अगर हमारा सम जो है वो टारगेट यानी कि 0 के बराबर है, हमारा केस हो सकता है कि एक प्रोबेबल आंसर वो हमारा बन सकता है. तो इन दैट केस we'll insert these values 1, 2 and 5 to the set, and then what we will do, we'll increment this j, this will come here, and we'll decrement this k, the k will come here. Else if sum is less than target, if our sum which we have made is less than target, means it contains the 1, 2, 3, minus 4, minus 5. So if our sum is less than target, for example 1 plus 2 minus 5, which is minus 2, and it is less than 0, in that case we'll increment this j. Else if this sum is greater than 0, we'll decrement this k. And in the end what we will do, we will just traverse the set and we'll push our values to t, which is this set, and we'll return this output. So this is a very famous question. You must try this question by solving it on LeetCode. Here I have given you the overview of the function. You can use this one inside your function block. So moving on with our next question, which is write a program to find height of a binary tree. So suppose we have a binary tree, 1, 2, 3, 2. So in this case, the height will be 3. So we have to write a program to find the height. So we'll be using recursion to solve this. We'll see the solution in GFG. So you can see that given a binary tree, find its height for this 2 inputs. Okay, so what we are doing here is, in main function, I have a function solve and we are passing the node, meaning we are passing this one to our main function. And what we are doing in this solve function is, we have a struct type node. So what we will do, will follow recursion. So the base case would be if node is null. Okay, if node is null, then return 0. Okay, otherwise int left equals to solve nodes left, and int right, again call this solve node right. And what we have to return is, what we will return, 1 plus maximum of left comma right. ओके, तो ये कोड कह क्या रहा है कि पहले हम एक लेफ्ट कॉल मारेंगे और फिर हम एक राइट कॉल मारेंगे, और अगर लेफ्ट या राइट जिसमें से जो भी वैल्यू बड़ी होगी उसमें 1 प्लस करके आंसर रिटर्न कर देंगे. 1 क्यों? क्योंकि हमारा जो हाइट है वो 0 से स्टार्ट होता है, हमारे सारे लेवल्स होते हैं बाइनरी ट्री के, वो 0, 1, 2. तो इन दिस केस हमें 1 ऐड करना पड़ेगा, तब जाके हमारी हाइट 3 बनेगी, राइट? ओके, so what we are doing, we are putting the value of left call in this left variable and right call in the right variable, and we are calling solve. Okay, so we are calling for left solve node left. So we are firstly going here, we are calling left 2. We are seeing that is this our base case? Node not equals to null. No, this is not our base case. We'll again call for the right. We'll see that left, yes, it's null, right, it's null. So it will backtrack, okay, giving 1. Then again we'll go to this 2, we'll do right call, we'll see the value is null, it will again backtrack, given value 1. Then and side by side this maximum, ये भी हम अपडेट करते रहेंगे. तो यहाँ से अभी तक 2 आ गया है, so this will return 2. तो 1 plus max ऑफ लेफ्ट क्या है 2, कॉमा राइट का देखते हैं. सो दिस विल, ये एक राइट कॉल मारेगा 3 विल अगेन कॉल लेफ्ट इज नल, देन दिस विल कॉल राइट विच इज नल, इट विल बैक ट्रैक 1 एंड प्लस 1 2. तो यहाँ से इसने ये वैल्यू 1 दे दी. तो अब ये जो हमारा रिटर्न है वो चेक करेगा मैक्सिमम 2 या 1 में से कौन सा है, which is of course 2. So 1 plus 2, which is 3. So this maximum will return 3. So this height will be equals to 3. Let's see the question. Yeah, it's doing the same. Left call, right call, and then we are returning the maximum of left and right. So you can run this code. So yeah, output 2. Moving on to our next question. Write a program to find diameter of a binary tree. Okay, what do we mean by binary tree is, suppose आपके पास एक tree है, which is this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this 6, और फिर 3 का right 7, 8, 9, right? So what do we mean by diameter is that the longest path between any 2 nodes. आप सोच रहे होंगे कि we'll start from here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So most of you will say 8, but no. The condition here is that the path does not need to pass via the root. Means the path should not pass from this route. In that case, जो हमारा longest path बनेगा वो ये है. ओके क्योंकि ये सिर्फ 1, अगर यहाँ से जाओगे तो देखोगे 1 2 3 4 5, बट यहाँ से जाओ 1 2 3 4 5 and 6. So this is the definition of diameter. So let me tell you the brute force for this. So what you can do, you can make a function find maxi, जहाँ पे आप अपना नोड दे देना इस ट्री का. उसके बाद अगर जो रूट है ये हमारा बेस केस हो जाएगा, अगर रूट हमारा नल है तो रिटर्न कर लेना, सिंपली विल रिटर्न. ओके, नहीं तो हम क्या कह रहे हैं कि हम लेफ्ट हैंड साइड में जाएंगे. तो ठीक है, ये हो गया. अब हम यहाँ पे लेफ्ट साइड, यहाँ पे राइट साइड. ठीक है, तो एक वेरिएबल लेफ्ट हैंड है ये, तो हम फाइंड को कॉल कर देंगे फाइंड लेफ्ट. ये फंक्शन है कि भाई तुम जाओ नोड के लेफ्ट में, और जो राइट है वो भी हम एक फंक्शन कर देंगे फाइंड राइट, कि भाई तुम जाओ नोड के राइट में. ठीक है, और जो मैक्सी है उसको हर बार इंक्रीमेंट कर देंगे. तो हर बार जो हमारा मैक्सी है वो हो जाएगा मैक्सिमम ऑफ मैक्सी कॉमा जो लेफ्ट हैंड साइड मिला और जो राइट हैंड साइड मिला, क्योंकि हमें ये पूरा लेफ्ट और राइट इन दोनों को हमें प्लस करके देखना पड़ेगा कि डायमीटर क्या आ रहा है. सिर्फ राइट या सिर्फ लेफ्ट ज़रूरी नहीं है कि वही लॉन्गेस्ट पाथ हो. ठीक है, उसके बाद फिर यहाँ पे फंक्शन कॉल हो जाएगी. ये आफ्टर दिस मैक्सी हम विल कॉल आवर फंक्शन फाइंड मैक्स नोड लेफ्ट, और सेम फॉर नोड राइट. तो ये आपका ब्रूट फोर्स अप्रोच हो गया. सो दिस रन्स इन ऑफ n square टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी. सो लेट्स सी द कोड which is of O of n time complexity. So we'll go directly on GFG to see this question. So as you can see here, this is a given question, diameter of the binary tree. तो हमने इसमें क्या करा है कि हमने एक सॉल्व फंक्शन बना लिया जिसको रूट और डायमीटर पास कर दिया, और एक डायमीटर वेरिएबल है जो कि हर बार चेंज होगा. इसको हमने यही इनिशियलाइज कर दिया 0 से, और हमने रिटर्न कर दिया डायमीटर +1, क्योंकि जो हमारा ये ट्री है ये लेवल्स जो हैं उसके 0 से शुरू होते हैं. फिर ये हमारा सॉल्व फंक्शन है जिसमें रूट पास कर दिया और डायमीटर पास कर दिया. दिस इज आवर बेस केस कि अगर ठीक है भाई रूट नल हो जाता है तो उस केस में रिटर्न 0 कर दो. अदरवाइज हम ये वेरिएबल में इसकी वैल्यू स्टोर कर रहे हैं लेफ्ट की और राइट की. तो हर बार जब भी हम लेफ्ट की कॉल मारते हैं तो हम क्या कहते हैं कि रूट गो टू योर लेफ्ट और जाके चेक करो जब तक वैल्यूज नल ना हो जाएं, वहां से रिटर्न करो हमें डायमीटर, जो कि हर बार हम यहाँ पे अपडेट करेंगे. और ये हमारा जो इंट आर है, व्हाट दिस लाइन इज सेइंग कि रूट सॉल्व गो टू द राइट एंड फाइंड द डायमीटर फ्रॉम देयर एंड रिटर्न मैक्सिमम डायमीटर कॉमा एल प्लस आर. ओके, एंड यहाँ पे रिटर्न कर दो 1 प्लस मैक्सिमम ऑफ एल कॉमा आर. अंडरस्टूड? तो हर बार एक लेफ्ट की कॉल जाएगी और एक राइट की कॉल जाएगी. तो जब लेफ्ट की कॉल गई तो ये 2 पे आया, इसने बोला गो टू योर लेफ्ट इट्स नल, go to your right it's null, return left and right. so ये 0 0 यहाँ से रिटर्न होगा of 1 plus maximum of left comma right which is 0. तो यहाँ से 1 रिटर्न होगा. so this will return 1. similarly ये कॉल्स होंगे यहाँ से 1, यहाँ से 2, यहाँ से 3, यहाँ से 1, यहाँ से 2, यहाँ से 3. so 3 plus 3 which is 6. so height of this tree is 6. So moving ahead with our next question, which is given an array of size n-1 that contains distinct integer in the range of 1 to n, find the missing element. The array is a permutation of size n with one element missing. return the missing element. So what this question is trying to say, suppose you have an array, you have 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. What is this question asking you to do is to find a missing element, which in this case is 4. So what will be our approach? We'll use the formula of finding the arithmetic sum of n numbers, which is n into n plus 1 by 2. And after total sum of number, we'll subtract the array sum. So one is this sum, and one we will take out this sum. And suppose this is sum 1 and this is sum 2. So we will subtract these two to get the missing element, which will be 4. So the time complexity will be O of n with space of O of 1. We'll be just using a loop to traverse this whole array. So the complexity would be O of n. So let's quickly see the coding part. So you can see we have a class solution. We have this function missing number and this array in the form of vector, this array variable. So what we are trying to do is, we are firstly creating a sum. We are assigning this sum as 0, and then we are traversing the array here, you can see, and we are adding the values of that array, and we are just returning the whole sum minus the sum which we have created. Okay. I hope these questions help you clear your next interview round. Stay tuned for more technical content like this, and don't forget to keep practicing. All the best.